Hey everyone, I'm Amethessence, and in this video, I'll be finishing what I started in my Turning Elements into Gods Part 1 video. Last time, I designed the characters for fire and air, which leaves earth and water for this video. Let's get started. To recap what I said in part 1, all the art you see in this video was done as part of my final art project for one of my courses. I decided to design 4 characters based on the elements fire, water, air, and earth, and then draw an illustration for each. The first element I'll be designing in this video is earth. As with the previous elements, I began with doing a lot of research on it. And in addition, I also researched motherhood and gardeners to give some extra inspiration for my character. But back to the earth. It has 2 major definitions. Earth, the planet on which we live, and the earth, which is a synonym for ground. So, in a way, the element of earth is the most expansive of all the elements. The land on which we live is full of all kinds of terrain, flora, and fauna. All throughout our planet, there are hundreds of ecosystems and biomes. This encompasses mountains, deserts, plateaus, glaciers, plains, caves, and more. All of this unique terrain was formed over hundreds of thousands of years through erosion and weathering. And of course, we can't forget the fact that Earth is the only known planet within our reach that is habitable for lives like ours. On the other side of things, Earth, aka the ground, is made of rock, soil, and many different minerals. It takes up about 29% of our planet. About 1/3 of this land is covered in trees, 1/3 is used for agriculture, 1/10 is covered by glacial features, and the rest consists of dry settings or human architecture. And then there's the matter of the human influence on our beloved Earth. As you probably can imagine, there are some ups and some downs. As long as humans have been on Earth, we have utilized it as much as we could. Agriculture, animal husbandry, architecture, mining, hunting, foraging, and energy production are just a small part of what we use it for. Land is just extremely valuable and easy to exploit. And when something is easy to exploit, humans tend to exploit it. So it's probably no shock to anyone that the earth is pretty polluted. And I believe in some places the desert is spreading, which is not good because that destroys the quality of the soil that produces plants. And because of this, the earth's biodiversity suffers. Many plants and animals have already gone extinct due to human influence. Erosion has always been something that happens to the earth, but human influence has caused our planet to erode 40 times faster. Furthermore, pesticides can kill and poison our flora and fauna. It's really quite sad, but this isn't a video about fixing the earth. Now more onto the positive side of things. The earth itself has often been personified as a goddess in many ancient religions. Sometimes this manifests as a mother-like goddess or a goddess of fertility. In Greek and Roman mythology, there were many goddesses of the earth, seasons, crops, and fertility. You may recognize names like Demeter and Persephone. Furthermore, the idea that motherhood and femininity are connected to the earth is not limited to Greek and Roman mythology. It's present in America too, as we often refer to Earth and nature as Mother Earth or Mother Nature. So now, you can probably guess why I chose to research gardeners and, more obviously, motherhood as the 2 extra things I would research. Mothers are something we all have or have had. Being a mother is usually associated with the woman that gave birth to the child, but a mother doesn't have to be that. There are many women who act as mother figures to those they did not give birth to. The ideal mother can be described as a woman who is all-loving, all-forgiving, and all-sacrificing. Not every mother can or will live up to that. In fact, it may be seen as unrealistic. Nobody's perfect after all, but it's a good ideal to strive to be like. As for gardeners, I guess you could also liken this to motherhood. For both, you have to dedicate a lot of time to taking care of whatever it is that you're raising. Although, I would think that motherhood is a lot harder. Anyway, garden maintenance includes controlling weeds, watering plants, pruning, composting, and making sure the plant gets everything it needs to grow. A gardener is anyone who engages in gardening, whether professionally or as a hobby. And apparently it's one of the oldest occupations. After finishing that research, I read through all of it to help me come up with ideas for my Earth character. I created a list of ideas and made a mood board containing everything I wanted to inspire my visual design. Then I drew my 8 thumbnail sketches. Basically the same process as with my 2 previous element designs. And then I began my character sheet for Ilana. I was unsure of the pose, but I knew I wanted something that would make her look soft and caring, as that's the kind of person she is. And so I eventually decided on this pose. And to further emphasize her softness, I gave her a round face and a calm, smiling expression, something that'll make her look very fond and warm. I tried to follow that same line of thinking with the rest of her body. I think I did quite well in that regard. Although, at some point, I showed this drawing to some people and one of them thought she was pregnant. She's not, and that's not what I was going for, but it kind of works with the whole Mother Nature thing. Also going along with the brown theme, you can see that her hair is very, well, round and long. For this character, I intended for her to be very mother-like, so therefore I designed her in a more feminine way. Long hair is usually considered to be pretty feminine. I also gave her these long, flowing garments. I can't really put the reason into words. They were just clothes that reminded me of motherhood. All along her design, I scattered pink carnations. Pink because that color is considered feminine, and carnations because they are often associated with Mother's Day. Also, she's the goddess of Earth, so it's fitting. As for the rest of the colors, I was going for a very earthy feel, so brown and green were the main colors, and I added in a more earthy gold for some of the accents. All of my designs have gold in them, except for the water one. This is because they're all gods, which makes it fitting. The water character is also a god, but gold didn't really fit into his color scheme, so I went with silver instead. It still works. For the headshots, I chose fear, fondness, and anger. For her iris design, you guessed it, the theme was round. I guess I just really like the idea of roundness. The Earth is round after all. And that's all for the design portion. Now onto the illustration. While you're watching the speed paint, I'll talk about Ilana's character. Ilana is deeply caring and loving of every living thing on her Earth. She loves tending to and caring for her animals, as well as gardening. However, nothing compares to being around her people. Despite the harm and destruction they cause to her Earth, she loves each and every one of them very much. She loves everything about them and enjoys observing how they adapt to the many different environments her planet provides. Out of all the elements, she is the most involved with mankind, often acting as a teacher and mediator for them. You could even say that she sees each and every one of them as her children. There have been many warring societies that have come to her for a resolution. Without her, great wars would have broken out. That's not to say that there have been no problems at all, as wars have still broken out. However, if they get too far, Ilana will intervene. And if the fighting continues after that, she will get very upset. Ilana treats everyone with kindness and logic, but she is not afraid to put her foot down. Ilana always wears a kind smile on her face, rarely displaying any sadness or exhaustion, though she feels both every day. She is often saddened by the degradation of land or the extinction of a species, especially since she so lovingly crafted each one herself. She tries her best not to interfere with the natural order of things that she has created, as it is so complex that even subtle changes can affect everything. Also, it takes a lot of time, energy, and power to fix. She does step in occasionally if things get too far, and if she believes humanity will not save a species, she will gather the few of that species that are left and keep them in her personal garden. Safe. Most of mankind adores Ilana, but there is one particular group that follows her without fail. These people strive to be like Ilana and do their best to love and preserve the land they live on. This group is scattered here and there throughout the world. And that's all for Ilana. Now on to the final elemental character, water. My notes for this element are quite expansive, just like all the others, but these notes are mostly taken up by this section, the human uses section. Out of all the elements, we probably actively use water the most, and as my secondary research point, I chose dancers. I'll explain that more later. Water is pretty important. It is fundamental for almost every living thing to survive and thrive. In fact, it's one of the big reasons that Earth is habitable. It covers about 71% of the Earth's surface, showing up as oceans, lakes, glaciers, and various forms of precipitation. It moves continuously through a cycle of evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and runoff, before repeating. And because water is so vital for everything, we humans use it a lot. We consume it, study it, and use it for entertainment, trade, transportation, religion, philosophy, etc. The consumption part is obvious. We drink it, we use it to grow plants and supplement our animals, we fish in it, and use it for cooking our food. There are also many fields of study related to water, like hydrology, hydrography, hydrogeology, glaciology, limnology, and the list goes on. Because of how necessary water is, many companies capitalize off of it. There are the necessities such as access to clean drinking water, plumbing, cleanliness, transportation, and trade across waters. Then there are the less necessary, like water sports, swimming, etc. Basically, water is used for a lot. Then I researched dancers, because at that point I had some idea of what I wanted for my water character. In most forms of dance, the foot is the source of movement. In some cases, special shoes are even needed to perform certain dances like tap. Dance is an art form that consists of sequences of body movements for the purpose of aesthetic and often symbolic value. Sometimes it's improvised and sometimes it's choreographed. Countries all over the world have special and unique dances, with the importance of dancing varying from place to place. After finishing up all that research, I once again went through all of it to come up with ideas for my character. Then I made the mood board and thumbnail sketches, and then set to work designing the god of water, Calder. I chose an expression and pose that I felt screamed ego because I was aiming to make Calder a very self-obsessed character. The reason is because of how important water is. Everybody loves it and needs it, so it makes sense that it would feed the ego of a man who's the god of it. Also, I just love characters with a big ego. They're just so fun. And it's kind of fitting for Calder, as he kind of reminds me of Narcissus. I wasn't thinking of that while designing him though. If you don't know, Narcissus is a figure in Greek mythology who was exceptionally beautiful and obsessed with his looks. He was so obsessed that he ended up staring at his reflection non-stop. He was unable to tear his gaze away and eventually died. I can see Calder doing the same, though he's immortal, so he wouldn't die from that. But anyway, I gave Calder a heart-shaped face. It just made sense for someone in love with himself. I also gave him this stupid, smug, almost flirty expression. Then I drew for him some long, wavy hair to mimic waves. This is further emphasized when I color it, as I use the colors and patterns that are similar to that of ocean waves. For his clothes, I took a lot of inspiration from male dancers. So basically, a lot of flowy fabric, baggy pants, dance shoes, and being shirtless. I don't really get the shirtless part in all these male references I found. I guess you could chalk it up to a callback to how a lot of exotic female dancers are depicted, and that's with crop tops. I think it works fine for Calder. I guess it also makes him seem more godlike. A lot of Greek gods are depicted mostly shirtless. Also, Calder is the god of water, and usually when we swim, we wear fewer clothes. I then gave him a lot of decorations and jewels. All the elemental characters have some kind of decoration on them, but I wanted to really push it for Calder. He seems like the type who'd be on the materialistic side. Additionally, I drew fish in his chest. I just thought it would be cool if his body was made of water and he casually had fish swimming in him. I had quite a lot of fun with the expressions. It brought me such joy to draw them. I chose pride, disgust, and horrified for his expressions. For the eye, I made his pupil a little fish and created this water texture for the background. And that's all for Calder's design. Now for the illustration and the description of his character. Calder is extremely popular with the people of Earth and spends a lot of time basking in their praise and accepting their generous gifts. It's not uncommon for him to just drop by a random city and expect to be treated to the highest degree. Many rumors, folktales, and beliefs have arisen around him and the water that makes up his body. One such rumor is the one that claims that his water has healing properties. Whether that's true, no one knows for sure. Some societies have tried capturing him to test this theory, to no success. He may be lazy in many aspects, but he's not slow, and he doesn't like to be confined. Calder loves everything to do with water. When he's not basking in the adoration of his fans, Calder spends his time sitting by bodies of water at night and just watching the water move. Either that or he swims through the oceans or dances on the water. If he gets enough gifts from a society, he may perform for them. Maybe. Calder has a strong connection to the moon, stars, and space, and dancing makes him feel closer to them. He would love to go to space, but is afraid it might result in him permanently freezing over. But that doesn't stop him from dreaming of it. Calder loves being clean and freaks out when any contaminant touches him. He'll spend hours cleaning himself. He also keeps a lot of weird-looking marine creatures as pets. He has a strange fascination with them. And that's all for Calder. Here are all the artworks again. This project was quite a huge thing that I took upon myself, and I spent many hours working on it. And although it was very exhausting to do all this art in such a short amount of time, I'm glad for the experience and practice. If you watched both parts, let me know which character is your favorite. I like all of them, but I'd probably have to choose Calder as my favorite. I can't help it. I just love characters that are like him. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already to see more of this kind of content. Take care and farewell.